Hello, welcome to our web applications lecture series. As being shown in the screen is the K12 grades encoding module. Listed is the subjects for a assigned to a teacher. The teacher can browse, can search the subjects assigned to him or her, and there is a link button that the teacher can click. Once the link button is clicked by the teacher, that particular subject will appear, and the teacher can now set the components. The components are the criteria for the subjects in terms of scoring the students. So the teacher can set up the percentages of each of the component. As you can see, there is the required 70% for this written works, because the K to 12 grading system is divided into two parts for this particular school: written works and performance tasks. So written works is 70% of the total score. So the five components here that now is being set up by the teacher should match that 70%. If not matched, the system will not allow for this criteria to be submitted. So now the teacher is now obliged to set up the criteria to 70% to match the required 70% of the written works. Once submitted, you can see the scoring sheets, and you can see the tabs. So the number of tabs is dependent on the components set up by the teacher. As you can see, here we have the scoring sheet for each of the tab. The As you click the tabs, the scoring sheet appears. So the scoring sheets are separated for each of the criteria. This part of the screen is the title. We can encode the title for each of the columns of each of the criteria that the teacher sets up. So as you type the title, the main scoring sheet title bar also changes, so that the teacher is guided as he or she scores the student. So the green part is for the maximum score. So that is the guide for the maximum score. As you go down the scoring sheet, the student is now being scored. So you can see that you don't need to click any submit button. It is just like an Excel sheet. So as you type, the score is saved, and there is a validation that if the score is above the maximum score, the system will remind the teacher that the value cannot be accepted. So the teacher just type the score as being shown in the screen. So that's how it works. This is the special part of the system, the integration of the Excel type. Mind you, this is not a commercial type of system. This is a system that is built by using a plugin known as Handsontable, which specializes in this type of interfaces, the Excel type of interfaces. As we go along, we can see that Handsontable is a powerful tool or a powerful plugin that is that utilizes the Excel type concept. So this is the basic feature of the hands-on table. So we just repeat the process that we did earlier. We type the title, and then we type the maximum score in the green row of the score sheet, and this as we score the students, you see how easy it is to score the students in this particular interface, which is the hands-on table. So as we go along, we just repeat the process, just score as being done in the real world. This time, it's not the score is now integrated in the database. So it is saved to the database, and we can do a lot of things to this score. We can create the class card. We can rank the students. We can collate the scores, use it for statistics purposes, etc. So since we have this data for the students, we can do a lot of things for this information, because this is now a system. Unlike uh, unlike using a manual Excel sheet, we cannot do this because the scores are not integrated. The Excel files are separated for each of the teachers in the school. In this particular system, all of the scores for all of the teachers are integrated and can be compared, can be collated, can do a lot of statistics, can create, as I mentioned earlier, we can create class cards, etc. So this is a very powerful tool that schools can use. So now that we already demonstrated the system, we begin the lecture series, the first part of our lecture series, which is the introduction to the grading system using hands-on table. What are the tools that we needed? We need a SAMP, Codeigniter, of course, hands-on table, and Navigat. This will help us a lot. So first part is the SAMP. We can download the SAMP since it is an open source tool or technology from its website. So as you can see here, we can, if we are using the Windows operating system, we can download it from uh, the website of SAMP, its official website, so that we can avoid problems. So we just click the version that we can use for setting up the SAMP, and as we proceed with the download, as you can see, the file is being saved, and once the uh, download is complete and install the SAMP in our system, we can now click the SAMP, and as you can see, we have the MySQL or the Apache and the MySQL uh, process, or the MySQL service that we can start and stop along the way. And then we have the SAMP concept, which is X is for Linux, A is for Apache, M is for MySQL, P is for PHP. So the Linux is, of course, the operating system. This is very popular for all those open source enthusiasts. And we have the CentOS as a variant of the Linux. So we have the Apache as the web server, which runs our web application. We have MySQL as the database, which is the repository of our data, organized accordingly. We have PHP as the server-side scripting language, easy to learn language. And we have here, uh, we go back to the sub control panel, the basic buttons that we can use for the sub control panel. We have the admin, the config, the logs if necessary. And now we have the tables, the MySQL part. As you can see, we have the special interface here, which is the Navigat, so that we can easily navigate the tables. We can easily organize and design the tables and browse the data in it. So if we want to have an easy time developing a system, um, it is recommended to use this interface. There are free trial for this uh, tool, specifically this Navigat tool. I think 15-day trial will allow us to use this convenient tool we can use to develop these systems. As you see, we can organize the tables into fields easily. It's a convenient way of using. And then we have, of course, the PHP component or PHP part of the SAMP. We can use text editor, special text editor. In this case, I am using the Sublime text editor. So it's also convenient to use if we want to code a PHP script. So as being shown here, the codes are color coded, uh, being color coded by the text editor, and in the left part of uh, the tool, the Sublime text, the folders are organized accordingly, and we can easily navigate these our coding works for our coding works. And then we have the front end technology. So as usual, we have the HTML, the hypertext markup language, and then we have the cascading style sheets to design for the color layout of our screen, and then the JavaScript language, which is for the behavior part of the system, and then the hands-on table, the Excel type, the Excel component of our system. So as being shown here in the screen, we have the HTML component. So we have the markup languages. As you can see, the markup languages is a partner type of markup language. We should open and then we should close the tags. And then we have the cascading style sheet. As you can see, if you are familiar with this coding, we can configure, set up the layout, the color, the sizes of the components of our view part of our system. The view part is the one that the user sees while he uses the system. So with regards to particular color or size or layout, we can use uh, the cascading style sheet. The cascading style sheet can be used also embedded in line with the HTML tab. So I'm sorry. So we have now the JavaScript component of the system. So as you can see, we have to remember different types of coding techniques. In this case, we have the JavaScript uh, coding. So the JavaScript will allow us to control the behavior of our system. So the behavior means if we click on something, it can be controlled by the JavaScript. Just like what we saw earlier, that if we click the button and the system detects that the system or the user did not match the certain criteria, the system will tell us what happened or what to do. So that's the purpose of the JavaScript. So it also requires a lot of coding. So in the hands-on table, it is also a JavaScript component. So it's a special JavaScript component that we should use. So we are now developing a web application. So an application program that is stored on a remote server and delivered over the internet through a browser interface. So it is a application is a server side system. So there is a server. We install the component like just like what I mentioned earlier, the SAMP, and we have to program the system, the business logic, and then the client will access the server. It will communicate to the server via the browsers. So we have different types of browsers: Chrome, Edge, Mozilla, Opera, Safari. So these are the popular browsers, and you know these browsers being accessed by the users will access the server, and the server will send data, HTML data, and through different parts. different technologies such as JSON and Ajax. It will be displayed on the screen of the user, and the user will interact with the server, the browser, and the browser or the client send information to the server will process the information and will return to the client. So as you can see, this is a sample of a web application. We have links in the left part of the screen, and then as we click the link, the information is being sent to the client side of the system. This information is stored in the database, and then when we click it, the system will retrieve this information, send it via the internet, and it will be displayed via the browser. The user can now see this information. So as as being shown, it is a seamless interaction between the client, which has the browser, and the server, which has the data. So this is how it works. This is how we need to program it, the programming part of it. And of course, the interface, the user experience is important. That's why we are using plugins such as Handsontable, so that the users have an easy time of doing things. So now we have the MySQL, which is of course the MySQL. It is the database, the tables, the fields, which is the queries, which are the repositories of data. We can use MyAdmin as the tool to navigate on the different components of the database. We have the Navigat, of course, and we have the Codeigniter active record in terms of programming. So this is the Navigat part, the Navigat. So it's easily navigable. We can easily navigate the different components of a database. So we can establish the connection to the server, the MySQL server, and we can set up the different databases. We have the list of tables. As you can see, there are many tables that we set up for the system. So we will introduce you to the important parts of the database, the tables that we needed in order to program the system. So this is the an example of a table. When we click the table, we can see the data in it. It is the, as I said, it is the repository of data. As you can see, the data of the subject information is organized into codes, into description, into number of units. And then we can design the table, which is name, unique name, which is type, whether it's an integer or a character, which is length, whether there is a decimal part, whether the field name is a primary key. So we have this connection. We can connect to the, assuming the, of course, the MySQL table is a remote server, so we can connect to that server using this information. So we can set up the connection, and then once the connection is established, we can now access the various databases for that connection. As we have here, we have the database for our grading system. So we can also do the query. A query means we can extract data as a subset of the main table. We can also combine several tables to do query. So that's the purpose of the database. The database is in such a way that we organize data. It's not chaotic. So we can organize it. We can extract data using the powerful SQL statements. Can select a statement, meaning we can browse the data, we can delete, we can update the data, we can add data to the database. So that's how powerful it is. The power of the SQL statements, the SQL language. So in this part of the demo, we are being guided by the tool Navigat. Instead of typing these commands, we can use their powerful tool to just click and type the criteria, and then automatically the SQL statements is generated. But if we don't have the tool such as Navigat, we can use a built-in uh, component of the SAMP, which is the PHP MyAdmin. It's just a browser-based component. The tables, the connections are also there. The tables, the database are also there. The data, as we can see, can also be navigated by PHP MyAdmin. But however, it's not as convenient as Navigat. But if we don't have the Navigat, we can use the PHP MyAdmin as an alternative to the Navigat. But of course, it will be easier for us to develop the system if we use Navigat. But of course, Navigat is a commercial tool and it requires us to purchase it. Okay. So if we use it as if we use Navigat as trial, we only have 14 days. So if it expires, uh, we can revert to PHP my admin. So that's how goes it. So this is now the folder structure of our uh, specifically the Codeigniter. We are using Codeigniter. So Codeigniter is a framework which is uses also the model view controller approach of developing a system. So the model is for the data part of the system. The controller is for the business logic, the business process, wherein we can compute, organize. The view is the rendering of the information, the one that can be seen by the user. And the configuration is how to set up to connect to different parts of the system. So here is the folder for our development environment. So we have the htdocs folder under the C drive. So we can we can navigate what particular application that we have. So we have here the application folder, and then we have the config, we have the controllers, we have the models, and we have the views. So it is an MVC approach, as we said earlier. So in the config folder, we have the config file. We have in the controllers, we have the controllers component of the system, and then when in the model part, we have the model component of the system. In the view folders, we have the views component of the system. So it is organized beautifully, uh, so that the programmers can divide their works into different controllers, different views, and different model. So that's how it works. You just remember this structure. So that and then the mindset of course of the developer of the system is that since it is organized accordingly, we have an easy time concentrating or focusing on the task at hand. So we are now also to have an easier time of encoding or coding. We can use a text editor, special text editor. In this case, we have the Sublime text editor. It is, the hierarchy is being followed. At the left side of the panel, we have the hierarchy as demonstrated earlier. So we can easily navigate the hierarchy, and then the center side of the screen, we have the codes. So when we click the file, the codes will appear here on the main part of the panel. And then we have the different parts as showed earlier, we have the configuration, routes, we have a sample controllers here. As you can see, the coding is right now um, under so many functions. As the controllers is organized into different functions, different parts of the system. The system is divided into functions. So the functions are the the business logic of the system, wherein we can compute, we can retrieve data, we can call the model part of the system so that uh, it can insert data to the repository, to the database. It can delete data to the database. It can update information. It can select data and retrieve information that the user wants. And it can compare, it can compute, can correlate, and follow the business process, just like in our grading system. As you can see earlier, there are the green part, the title part, and the score sheets, and the name of the students. So it is being retrieved from the database via the controller. So the controller is the one who will retrieve it. The controller is the one who will call the model. The model is the one who will retrieve the data. So as you can see, we have now the model part. So the model part of the system is the part that interacts directly to the database. So the model part is organized so that it can function according to what we call CRUD. Later on, we will discuss CRUD. So now we have the view. We have the view part of the system. So this is the part that renders the information to the user and sets up the information into tables, into different types of layout. It colors the system. It uh, configures the size of the information or the data. So in order to do that, we have the different parts of the view. So the first part is we can call various libraries of the components included in our folders. So in this case, we are calling Handsontable via the script tags and the link tags. So we also use other libraries, as many libraries. We can call as many libraries as we can, as long as it will not conflict from one another. So we have now the JavaScript part of the system. So it's also a different types of coding because this is the client side. The client side of the client programming part of the system. Also, the view is also the client side of the system. So it uses HTML, it uses CSS, and then this is the CSS part. So this is the file that configures, as I said earlier, the layout of the system in terms of themes or in terms of color that the system wanted to use in terms of size, positioning, etc. So this is how, as you see, I just run it down. And then we have the hands-on table. So the hands-on table specializes in Excel type of interfaces. There are advanced features of this system, but right now we are of this library, but now we are using the basic uh, approach of programming the hands-on table. Along the way, we will explain to you how it works, what are the codes all about. So it's we are just presenting to you right now, or I'm just presenting to you right now how the hands-on table works. So we have the placeholder as shown earlier, and then the placeholder is you know, being pointed by the hands-on table. So once the hands-on table extracts all the data, and it is rendered as a JavaScript component. So the data is being passed to the client side. This is the data will come, of course, from the server, but the hands-on table will get it via the JavaScript. The JavaScript is a client-side uh, programming, so meaning the data will go to the browser, and then it will be rendered by the hands-on table, will be put into the HTML component, and the the component or the data will be rendered via Excel type of interface. So that's how will work. So this is the layout of the Anson table. It is a function. It can be called, function. Of course, we can call it. We already called the hands-on table library, and then we set it up accordingly via this scripting language. So it is very similar to JavaScript, but we'll just follow this layout. It's more on the layout. It's more on extracting the data and setting it up, organizing it into tables and rows like Excel, and then set up the configuration of the worksheet. Whether the worksheet there is a freeze column, whether the column is read only, the column can be writable, and then there are events that we can program in it as we type, whether what particular function will it call in order for that data to be saved to the database as we type. So then there is the interaction between the server and the client, which is the hands-on table, a server, which is the PHP through the controller. So as we end up this first part of our lecture series, we need to uh, continue this on our second part. So our second part is more detailed, and we will start the actual development of the system.